Hello, once again you are much welcome to my introductory lecture on Visual Basic. Well, first of all, now this is not just Visual Basic but Visual Basic.net. So the old Visual Basic has been converted to new Visual Basic.net. To get to Visual Basic.net, you first have to be installing Visual Studio. Now, as of this current recording, we are having the most latest version of Visual Studio, which is Visual Studio 2019. To download Visual Studio from the website, from the Microsoft website, you just have to type in download Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition. So let me type download Visual Studio 2019 Community. Alright, so when you get to that, you definitely will be taken to visualstudio.microsoft.com. You can definitely open that link directly, and you can find three distinct downloads. One for the community version, which is free, which is completely free for students, for open source developers, contributors and individuals. However, if you're a company, you should consider downloading a paid version. You can download for trial, but these are ultimately paid version, and this is completely free. So I will definitely recommend you to download the community version, which is a free one. You can test it, you can do all sort of things. Okay, so you can just download it. In case if you're having a good internet connectivity, you can just download the startup first, and then after that it will take a while, maybe an hour of time maximum, depending on your internet connectivity speed, to get everything gets downloaded in your computer. Now once it gets downloaded, there are some other video tutorials on the website. You can just go and check how exactly you can download Visual Studio 2019 and exactly select your options. Now once it gets downloaded, you can definitely start using it. I'm having Visual Studio 2019 side by side my 2017. So one good news is that there is no harm in having both of these Visual Studio side by side. Okay, so let me click on Visual Studio 2019, having a little bit different interface that of 2017 and the previous versions. Now here I have to be choosing new project first, and we are having a few templates. The first thing is that we should be choosing the language in which we are going to program. Now since I am explaining for Visual Basic, for now I am just choosing the language as Visual Basic. Wonderful. Then we go for platform. So I would like to go for Windows. The very moment I have that, we also have a project type. The project type will be desktop. Okay, so let me click on that, and when all of these selections are made, you can definitely find Windows Forms application using .NET framework. Okay, so this is what we are targeting, Windows Forms application using .NET framework. And you can see we are writing something on desktop, which is definitely a Windows application, and we are doing that in Visual Basic. So these are the three tags for your application. Good enough. With that knowledge, let's click next, and let's name this application as something. For now, let me just name as introduction to VB. That's it. Intro VB is the name of the project. As of now, this recording, the most latest version of .NET is 4.7.2 for the standard .NET framework. And let's click create to create this project for us. So now the Visual Studio is creating a Visual Basic .NET application with the name of the project set to Intro VB into our computer. So there it is. We get our first form. Let me little bit shrink it to this size. That's fine. And now immediately upon creating this application, you can see a few things on your surface of Visual Studio. You can see a toolbox which is tagged in the left hand side. You can see a solution explorer. This is nothing but contents of your project. Okay, so with the name of intro VB, you can see a few things dangling down, right? And you can definitely see a property box, which I'll explain a little bit later. So are the three things that you can see. One, the toolbox. Now I can just use all Windows controls or the common controls. I can just drag and drop anything on this Windows form. So Visual Basic.NET is basically Windows development application environment. Now in fact you can use Visual Basic for web development also, but traditionally Visual Basic was used almost for creating a Windows development. So that's why I thought that let us start teaching you Visual Basic just by first going into a Windows application. However, you can use the same language for just about anything. You can use this Visual Basic to go for web-based applications, which we call ASP.NET. You can also use Visual Basic for creating mobile applications or even web API or service applications. If these things doesn't mean anything to you, don't worry. As of now, we will restrict ourselves to create a very simple Windows application which you will enjoy seeing, I hope. So you can see a lot of controls over here, right? In fact, common controls are just very commonly used controls. So we just have a few of it. But if we just expand the Windows Forms all controls, you will see a whole lot of controls. So many. So I just filtered out for the common sections, for the common controls, quite often used. You can find labels, you can find text boxes, right? And these are something which are hugely used and in conjunction with button. So I can tell you 3 of the controls are almost inevitable in any application. You should be using, or you have to be having, some labels. Now label controls, if I drag and drop a label up here, you can simply set its property. Now properties box is exactly for that. You can right click on it. If you don't see this in the very beginning, say for example you don't have it, you can simply right click on this guy, click properties, and then the properties box immediately appear. For some reason, if you don't see this solution explorer coming up, no worries, you can just go to view and click solution explorer. Where is it? Yeah, here, solution explorer. So there it is. In the same way, from the view menu, you can also get toolbox, which is already there in front of your screen. You can play around with these. You can definitely tack this anywhere. I can tack it down, I can tack it in the middle, I can also tack it in the left hand side. But traditionally this has been the setting with Visual Studio. All the controls in the left hand side, the main designing part of the forms in the main central zone. The output zone will be showing you all the errors and compilations and all the things. Once you start compiling this application, you will see all those things down there. And definitely the solution architecture in the right hand side with solution explorer in the top and the properties window down there. Now let me tell you first of all what this property window is, which is of extreme importance. You can configure the controls, appearances and everything using properties window. Say for example, we just dragged and drop a label on the surface. Now if I go to this, if I click on it, of course I do have to click on it, okay? Say for example I drag and drop 2 labels, that's fine. So this first label is identified as label 1. This second label is identified as label 2. So if I click on this and if I right click and I go to properties, in case if you don't see this property window, or you can also click on it and click F4 to have the properties in front of you. Now after that, let me wipe out this text and write something meaningful, like say for example, enter your name. That's lovely. Enter your name. And say for example, this I want to be asking about, enter your hobby. Okay, so now these are the two there's a static text on the screen. So right now, if you want to see the application what we have created at this point, we can simply start it by clicking that green triangular button which just says that start the application. So if I click start, you'll just find the application to be starting. But hold a sec, since I am having an antivirus will be stopping any new exes being created. So I will quickly stop. Yes, the antivirus has prompted, because every time we have a new Windows application, and since all Windows applications is basically an executable file, so if you're having a good antivirus, that might attempt to stop it or scan it for a while, and after that, once the scan is right, it has detected no virus, it will let it go. So since I am demonstrating, I would like to stop my antivirus for an hour of time. Okay, let me make it to go sleep, so it won't stop me anytime now. So wow, what do we see on screen? We see an window, right? So an window just having two messages, enter your name and enter your hobby. However, there is nothing to be entered. I don't have a text box after that. So you can see, however, a truly amazing windows appearing in front of your screen. You can minimize it, right? You can maximize it. So you can do whatever you can do with a small application like a notepad or anything. So in true sense, this is a Windows application. So let me tell you what exactly the program got created. You see intro VB. Intro VB is nothing but the project, which is also a project folder. So if you right click on it, if you go to open folder in File Explorer, if I click on this guy, on this link, I'll be able to see the project folder where my project files are being present. If I click just one step back, I'll see intro VB. Now this is the main project folder. I do have a shortcut, we can call it as a link. I'll explain what solutions are, because over here you are still seeing a solution in the top. So don't worry about this and this guy. Basically you can have multiple projects underneath one solution. You can have more than one projects underneath one solution. However, this is just one solution and one project underneath as of now. So let me move inside it, and you can find all of our project files to be staying inside. And if you really go inside this bin folder and go inside this debug folder, you'll find introvb.exe to have been created. Now you can simply copy this, you can distribute to your friend, and your friend will just run it. So you can just copy it, you can just give it to anyone. Maybe I'm just pasting it onto my desktop, just kind of running it. You see, it is running. Beautiful. So that means creating a Windows application, creating a program, creating the exe, and then distributing is just a blazing fast process. Okay, fantastic. So let me now get back to our project, and let me add a few more functionality into our application, some more functions. So as I've told you, there are three most important controls. One is the label, just to show something very static on your form. Labels are best choices. However, labels cannot accept anything inside. To accept something, you must be having some text boxes there. Okay, so this is a text box. I will be having another text box down there. So there are two text boxes now, and once, okay, now if I run it at this point, you'll see that that is wonderful. Now we can have something to be typed in. I will write my name, Shudipto, and my hobby is, like, say for example, swimming. Right. Now if I click button on it, there's a message that will come up, Shudipto likes swimming. Okay, so if I just type in something, and if I type some hobby after that, if I click a button, I just want to see in a message box or a label down that Shudipto loves swimming. Okay, so how do I get that? For that, I will definitely be having a button over here. Okay, now if I just drag and drop a button, by default Visual Studio just names it as button 1. So the text that appears on the surface is just button 1. So I'd like to get rid of that, and I just like to have inside like, okay, like submit. Okay, just submit. So once I type in my name and type in my hobby and click submit, I would like to see something popping in front of me. So how can I do that? Let me minimize the screen size. It's better to look small stuff over here. So let me type my name, let me type my hobby, and then the submit button. Now one thing I'd like to tell you right now is, okay, if I ask you how many distinct controls you see on your screen. Now controls mean what? Control means elements. Well, like button is an element. These are text boxes. There are two more controls and two more label controls. So in total there are 5 controls. Okay, all these 5 controls that you see over the screen are basically floating over the surface of this window. Fantastic. So as if you have a wall and you have just hooked inside your wall 5 different artifacts, 5 different stuff, right? So you can consider a Windows form as a wall, and these are just defined different design elements that you have fixed on your wall. Good. So now this is a button, and any control, these are known as controls. Okay, now these controls are having some names. You see, by default the name of the button, the first button that you drag and drop, will be named as button 1, but you can name this as anything. I'll name this button as button submit. Okay, so that we understand that this is a button which submits something. So let me name this as after its work. It's good to name the controls after what it does. So the same way, the text box is named as text box 1, and this text box is named as text box 2, and if I again drag and drop, another text box is automatically takes to text box 3, and if I drag and drop a button, automatically takes as button 1. Why button 1? Because I have already named it to something. So any new button will be starting from button 1 by default, and the next button will be named as button 2. So it is very much advisable that you should be naming them extremely properly so that you understand what it does. Now we have this text box. Let me name this text box as text box name, person name. Okay, fine. So this text box is named as text box person name without any gap. Okay, that is how controls are named. You can think a control as a variable, and it is indeed so. Every new control is completely unique, so they must be named uniquely inside a form. So let me have this named as text box 2, then hobby. That is wonderful. Text box 2 hobby. Beautiful. Now let me double click on this submit to see something wonderful. So you are now within a completely different area. Now this is what is Visual Basic coding area. This is something we can call it some code behind or code, right? So code behinds are mostly called in web context, but still we can refer to the same thing. So that means this is the code, the backend code of this design. So whatever you see here is the design. Now as I click on this button, I am just within a button click handler. We call it click handler. Okay, so that means I have a button, I have a click handler. I can even have another button, I can be having another handler. Say for example, this button is just going to be telling me buy. Okay, so I can just be first of all, I'll just delete this text. I'll just say hi. Okay, instead of bye, let me greet you by hi first. Hi, and let us name this as BTN say hi. Okay, so as of now, the say hi doesn't really require your hobby to be written, because these are two distinct buttons. The submit actually submits your both of your data, name and hobby, whereas hi just tells you hi depending on your name. So I can be having two different buttons, and if I now double click on this say hi, you will see a completely different code area. So that means this button submit is something that has to do with the click of submit button, and say hi click has to do something when I click on the say hi button. So there are completely two distinctive areas. So this line of or this function, if you've got any idea about function, I can tell you. If you don't have, no worries. All I can tell you is that everything that you write down over here, okay, everything that you write down will be happening only and only if the button submit gets clicked, and anything that happens here will happen in case if button say hi gets clicked. Okay, so let us delete this rubbish code and let us do something meaningful. Let's first do this one. You can have this code in any order. It doesn't matter in which order you have them. You can even have them down or up. In any order you can have them, right? You can have this function up, this function down. It doesn't matter in which order you have. Until you have got code inside it, it will work. So let us first see what will happen when I just, even I can just move it in this way. Okay, so let's do it this way. Let's have this button right here so that I can click my name and click say hi, so that immediately it tells me hi. And when I have both of this data and click submit, then it submits my data to the form, and which greets me with something else. So therefore let us first execute and have this say button hi. And remember, this text box is named as text box person name, and exactly this control will be referred within my btn say hi click now. Well, how do I do this? In Visual Basic, we declare some variable just by writing a dim statement. Dim str as a string. Beautiful. Now str equals to, I'll just write hello, and then a concatenation of Visual Basic is being done just by using ampersand symbol. Okay, hello and then ampersand, and after that I'm just going to write the text box's name. You remember the text box's name is text box person name, which is beautiful. You see, text box person name. But just writing text box person name will not work and will be giving you that red squiggly error. All you need to do is that you need to ask that control, hey, what is within you? So that means I just need to write text box person name dot text. Now what is this dot? This dot is the beauty of object oriented programming. Okay, so what that dot means is, in English, in simple English, that will just mean something like this. Text box, this is a text box, it's text. Okay, so for example, there's a person on a team, and then team's age, we write like that, correct? Now in object oriented world, we write team dot age. Beautiful. So it's very easy to understand object oriented programming. Just understand the very fundamentals first and you can get set go, right? So it is just having team's age being converted to team dot age very easily. So hello and then text box person name dot text. This will be giving you the content within the text box person name, and then that gets concatenated. Once again, I'm telling you, this is the concatenation symbol. In many languages we have plus as concatenation. We do have plus in Visual Basic, but is having a little different meaning as like with that ampersand. So ampersand is nothing but concatenation between two distinct strings, and notice that I have a space so that two information don't stick to each other on screen. So I just concatenated them and placed it within str, and once I did that, I am just going to be flashing that message on a beautiful little alert box, a small message box. In Visual Basic, from ages we have message MSG box for doing exactly that. So let me write message box str. Okay, the very moment you write MSG box str, it is going to be pushing that MSG box right over here. Now let me tell you one thing. Visual Basic .NET is carrying its legacy from the world, from the old Visual Basic, and even the Visual Basic is carrying all its legacy from Basic. So I didn't tell you until now. So that means Microsoft created GW Basic, right, as its oldest console based DOS based basic language. It was used to be taught long time before. Even in sometimes school syllabuses, GW Basic is being taught. Now from GW Basic they have created some editor, they call it Q Basic. You can call it in simple basic language. Okay, so basic language was developed by Microsoft, and then they created Visual Basic. Just to be working with Visual Studio, and then that Visual Basic really grew immensely, and there were many programmers, they depended heavily on Visual Basic because of its extreme ease of coding, very easy interface. So you know, like debugging abilities are so fantastic, like anyone can code Visual Basic, right? So there are a lot of softwares, and even now in production there are a lot of softwares still being created just using Visual Basic. And let me tell you that Visual Basic started from version 1.0, then become 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, all up to 6.0 version. But after that, Visual Basic migrated to Visual Basic .NET, which we call Visual Basic 7.0 version. In short, we can call it VB.NET. Okay, so VB.NET is now completely a revamped, newly generated version of Visual Basic, just to be used on the top of .NET platform, .NET framework. If you don't understand what .NET framework is, what is that, what is the comparison it with Java, I have a little long video on my website. You can just have a watch on it. You can get to understand what exactly .NET is. So I'm not discussing exactly what .NET is. In short, I can tell you .NET is just a common framework for many languages. It can be VB, it can be C#, it can be Visual C++ .NET. There are a lot of languages which just rely on .NET. So it's just a bigger framework on which many languages are standing. So as I did tell you that Visual Basic is coming from VB and VB is coming from Basic. So all the old libraries that Basic had you can be using them as is in Visual Basic, and those libraries is also carried forward to VB.NET. For example, the old things like mid or mid dollar, okay, and then len, and then for Visual Basic guys they'll be using MSG box, okay. So all of these things are still available in VB.NET, but it is recommended that you should be using more of the .NET library standard, because these are very standard. So if you ever migrate to other language like C# and others, then you'll find the functions extremely same, completely same rather, okay. So instead of using MSG box, let us not use MSG box, let's use message box dot show. You might argue that there are a lot of code in here, but this is a .NET way of doing stuff, okay. So I'll strongly prefer you people, those who are learning or interested in Visual Basic, just to get more into the .NET specific libraries and functions, because this function is totally available in C# and other .NET compatible languages, because this is ultimately a .NET library, a .NET class. So no worries, as of now you can do in either way. So let me start it and show you that it should work. Okay, let me just write my name and just click say hi. It says me hello Shudipto or hi Shudipto, whatever. Now I also would like to enter your hobby. I can write this time as programming and just click submit. There should be a message down in a very similar way that Shudipto loves programming. Well, how to do that? It's very simple. We can do almost the same thing. So let's now we need to access two of the text boxes now. One text box is text box person name, and another text box, as you remember, is text box hobby. So in the same way, let us create two variables and let us have those variables some good name. So let me have the name as, for example, as, okay, I can have it as message itself, not a problem, as a string. And then I can write string equals to, I'll just say who loves what, okay. So that means text box person name dot text, oops, I'm using plus because I'm more used to C#, you know. So ampersand, then a little space, and then I'm concatenating with another one, which is text box hobby, and again it's text because we need to be accessing its text. You see, I'm sorry, it should be MSG. So message is what I'm initializing that message. You can write any variable for that matter, it doesn't matter what you name these variables. So message is what, text box person name dot text, then ampersand, then little space. Here I'll write loves, then a comma, okay, and then I'll write the hobby that the person likes, okay. And after I have created that message, I can simply display it onto my message box. I can just type in message box dot show. I can just write MSG, and that works well. That's it, very simple. So I have just collected the information from two distinct text boxes. So the first text box was the person text box text. I have concatenated that one. So that gets concatenated with a constant string loves, then a comma, then a space, and then again concatenation, and then we are giving the hobby. After a full concatenation, it creates the ultimate message. It just prepares the message and then shows the message. I'm again sorry for having a semicolon because I'm a C# programmer, and C# and C and C++ and Java programmers, all of these programming languages end with a semicolon. So this happens always. So let me write my name once again, Shudipto. Let me type in swimming. Fine, click submit. Just has this message over here. Shudipto loves swimming. That's wonderful, right? So that was a pretty small example of how to create a simple VB.NET form, how to integrate that with your Visual Studio, how to access properties, right? You can just access property on any one of them, just click on it. You can click F4 to have it, right, if it doesn't display, and just run it and show that it works. And after that, once again, anytime, every time we run it, the exe within the bin folder really gets updated, and you can definitely have that form which you can simply distribute to your friend. Okay, so that is what is software development. That was beautiful, but definitely I just like to go a little bit beyond that. How do I create another form? If I really have to be creating another form, how do I do that? Well, to do that, just right click on this, click add, click new item, and you can have a lot of new items. Just wanted to show you so many items that you can create, but most likely you're going to be creating a new Windows form. So let me just name this as, every form is having a name, so let me name this as welcome form. Beautiful, welcome form, and click add. Now that is a welcome form. Now this is fine that you have this welcome form in here. Now what I want right now, as I start this application, I just want my welcome form to pop up first. Inside welcome form there will be a link that will be taking me to that form, exactly like this. Say file, and then say for example I can have something, maybe save as, and you can see a new form like this. Okay, so exactly like this, I would like to have this as my main startup form first, and then I would like to introduce a menu, a small menu. If I click on that menu item, I'd like to see that our original work, that is form 1 to be showing. Alright, how do I do this? The very first thing that you need to make sure that when I start it, at least this form comes in. So let me show you how exactly you can do that in Visual Basic. Right click on intro, go to properties, and in properties you will find startup form. Okay, you will find other stuff also, framework version, application type version, icon of your application, right? You can have icons for it also. Icon is what appears in the corner. Okay, see the icon of Visual Studio, you can set your own icons, but for now it is asking for what is my startup form. Now by default, the application startup form is the first form that was added to your application. So let me pull down this menu and now set welcome form as the startup form. Let me save everything. Let me close this properties dialog, and let me start application again. Voila, now you can find that your welcome form is coming on the top. Now small glitches like welcome form is the name of the form, technical name, but I should not be able to, I should be seeing welcome, I should not be seeing such a kind of technical title on the top. So I'd like to change the technical title to a more human readable title. So let's give a space over here, or let me totally get rid of that form. That's it, welcome. Okay, so you can just set the text of a form just like you set the text of a button or text box, just to change the caption that it has. Okay, now that you understand this one, two more things you have to do. Now I want to be integrating menus inside this form, and I want that this should be a container. Okay, that should be a container. So I want other forms to be contained within this bigger form. Now for that, all you need to do is that you make sure that you click on it once. You simply go inside the properties and try to locate is MDI container. MDI is multiple document interface. So that means it can be having many documents, forms, child forms all within it. By default it is turned to false, but I like to take it to true. Once I make it to true, the surface turns gray. Don't worry, exactly this is your form. So if I, so for example, if I close everything, so for example I'm closing everything for now, and also you'll be having fun of it. You see, exactly this is what was the thing. You see, this is the gray area, right? So that means all of the things that you see on the screen are nothing but child forms. Okay, so let me once again take you to the to the first of all, let me get you the toolbox. Normally I take some time to locate things. Okay, I'm sorry, I was in edit. So just let me first have my welcome form over here. That's perfect. Let me click view and let me click your toolbox. Yes, that's fine. I got it here. Right now, solution explorer and properties are sitting right over here. Great. Now what I want, first thing, to be able to have a menu button, just like I have menu underneath Visual Studio. The same way I would like to have a menu. To have a menu, all that you need to do is that click on this menu and toolbars. Underneath that you have got menu strip. Okay, this is the menu strip. So after that you just drag and drop that menu strip down the form. You might be asking, why down? It should be up here. But no, if menu strips are not the part of a form like buttons and text boxes in regular way. They will be going exactly in top and always top. So wherever you put, either here or top, it has to go right there. It will say menu strip. Okay, and then you'll automatically be given an option to edit this. Beautiful. So let me give a very similar kind of thing like file. You can find it here over here. You see, file, same way, file. Let me have over here something like help, maybe something like over here like about, and inside here let me have something like some form 1, some activity. I'll just name it as activity, and let me have something like over here exit. Okay, so these are a few things that we have it in front of us. Okay, activity, exit, help, and all of these things. So now you can consider all of them as little buttons. So that is a button, exit is a button, underneath help is a button. So let me generate all these events first. Exit, and then underneath help, about. You can see all the events. Wonderful. You see, it writes activity tool strip menu item, click. Exit tool strip menu item, click. About tool strip menu item, click. So all of these are different menu items which has to be now implemented. So that is beautiful. Now let us first execute. How do I exit out from this application? It is pretty simple. I just write close and it exits. Okay, closing this just exits, and that's it. And closing this will be exiting out, right? Will be exiting out. So that is the first thing that exits out. And if I now run this application as of now, you'll find that if I run this application, see, very beautiful, I have this one, click and exit, that simply exits the application out. So the commands are extremely easy in Visual Basic. Okay, that is wonderful. Now to have an about message visible, I can simply write message box dot show. Once again, it's no fancier, just I'd like to see a message. I'll just say about, I might say like intro VB, I might say copyright 2019, all rights reserved. That's good, wonderful. And what about this one? Okay, let me run it now and show you the changes incrementally. So if I click exit, that exits. If I click activity, nothing happens right now because we don't have any code inside, okay? But if I exit, that exits. If I click about, just greets me with a small message about VB in intro VB, application's name, copyright, and all rights reserved. Beautiful. So now how do I really activate this activity, which is nothing but going into this form and able to do some activity? Well, just remember that every form is basically having a name, which is, for this case, it is form 1. Okay, we can change his name anytime though, but I'm not preferring to change right now. Remember that his name is form 1, so I just have to be calling this form from this design, and it has got some interfaces. I'm really not going into interfaces as of now. You will be distressed to know all the interfaces right now, so you might be getting deviated. So I just will be creating a form. We call it new instance in object oriented world. I just call it maybe F as new form 1. Now you might be asking, what is that new keyword? Well, the new keyword just creates a new form out of that form 1 design. Let me take a little minute to explain you. Whatever you see on screen is really not a form, it is just a design. Okay, now to create a real instance, a real stuff out of the screen, you definitely need to create an object out of it. Okay, an object means something in real. So if I think about a building, so that's a thought, right? Now if you really see a building, so that means it's an object. So whatever you really see is an object, and what you think is a class. Okay, so form 1 is basically a class. I am really not going into the object oriented design as of now, just want to tell you briefly what is what, so that you don't confuse too much with that new keyword. So the new is just creating a realistic thing out of a conceptual thing. So form 1 is some conceptual design of a form, and F that we create right now is an object of it. An object is a real entity of something which is conceptual. Okay, now once we create the real entity, we can name it anything. I can name it F, G, H, I, J, K, L, anything, your name also. So once I do that, I just have to be writing a few more things. I have to be setting this as an MDI child. Okay, I just need to say that, hey, this is just going to come inside of that form. Okay, let us not do this right now and just click this show. Show basically shows the form on screen. It just brings the form in live. Okay, so until you have show, it will not be showing. So that means by default the first form will automatically show. You don't have to do anything to show this in Visual Basic. In C#, however, you have to write special instruction to show this welcome also, but you did not write any code to see this on screen. But once after we have a form, to show more of the forms, we definitely do have to write some code of that sort, like create the form that you want to see, an instance of it, an object of it, then call on its show method. So if I click on it, click activity, you see the form gets created and it is showing somewhere here or there. But maybe that I would like to have it right within inside this, okay, as a container. Just to make that possible, I'll just say, hey Mr. F, I'd like to have you as is MDI child to turn to true. So there are two things distinctively I am telling you. Is MDI child as boolean, so it has to be turned to true. There is a red squiggly. Gets the value indicating whether the form is multiple. No, is MDI child. Just a second. Here we have just named it as, if I go to properties, you can see that we have named as is MDI container, which is true. But here is MDI child should preferably be set to true, otherwise that won't be an MDI child. Having an issue over here. Just a quick time. Just sorry for little breaks over here, because MDI child is something that we don't set that way. I'm just sorry for that little delay. All that we need to do is that, because we are developer, we don't remember everything bits by bits. The concept is most important. So just turn on to internet and just found something beautiful over here. Just writes to set something MDI child. You don't have to set it to MDI child like that. All you need to do is that you need to tell that its MDI parent is the current form. So what I mean is that, don't confuse. I'll just say, hey, my parent is the current form. The current form is what? Welcome form. Okay. So I just need to write MDI parent is the current form. The current form is always written as me. Now what is me? Me is the welcome form. So it's just telling that I'd like to show you, but within the context of the current form. The current form is always denoted within a visual basic form by writing me. Okay, so we just need to write f.mdi parent being set to the current form. Do you get me? It is very easy not to mess with that. All that need to do two things. Just have that form and just set inside the property. You have set its is MDI container to true. So it has to be an MDI container so that it can host all the child forms. And for every child form that wants to connect to it, it has to name that, okay, this is a child form and my parent is the current form that within which you are coding. And that's it. We are ready to go. You'll find file, activity, you see. Now this is well inside it. Beautiful, right? Now the beauty of this thing is that you can create another activity instance. So that is why I call them instances. Okay? So now there are two distinct objects. They will be working completely distinctively. Say if my name is Shudipto and if my hobby is programming. And now if I click submit, it just says Shudipto loves programming. However, you can still work on that and have a completely a different set of name. So for example, if your name is Ravi and if your hobby is say for example say what to say, you can just have any hobby for that matter, maybe swimming. Okay, and that click submit, it says the hobby of Ravi. Okay, so these are completely two distinct sets and these are two distinct objects. So in this little shorter tutorial, I just explained to you right from scratches how to install Visual Studio. I just pointed you to a link which is a community version. Then I suggested you that okay, you download the community one, and once it takes a while, you can download it right from the internet. It will take some time, and after that you can create a Visual Basic desktop based application from the startup options. and from that we created a very simple form, which was form 1, having very simple inputs, and then thought of placing that form inside an MDI container, for which we created the MDI container, kept a menu strip. We had some menu items that says that is having some distinct work, and we have some activity or activities. We can have a lot of activities, a lot of forms getting connected to this menu strip, and finally we know how to exit out of everything. So thank you so much for being in this session. If you have got any questions, any doubts, you can leave that into the comment box. You feel free to do that. I'll answer you. And in case if you want to get online visualbasic.net training from me or a C# training, you can definitely contact me in my email ID, which is supernova.software.solutions@gmail.com, or you can visit my website, which is www.supernovaservices.com. Thank you so much for being in this session. Have a great day. Thank you.